Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're tuning in from. My name is Chris Rainey, co-founder here at HR Leaders, and I'll be your host for today's live panel discussion where we're going to be talking about how to future-proof your hiring strategy by balancing AI, automation, and human-centric approaches. With that being said, let me introduce you to our amazing panelists. We're joined by our good friend who's back again, Deepak Parija, who's the Chief Talent Officer of Wipro. We've got Eva Priestley, who's the Vice President of Talent and Culture at Miro. We've got Arno Peppercorn, who's the Chief Talent Officer at Omnicom, the media group. Liesel Hewson, who's a Chief People Officer with over 10 years experience in this space. We've got Mark Ridderhoff, who's the Head of Sales and Partnerships at Quantify. Hey, everyone. Nice to see everyone. How are you all?
Lovely to meet you, Chris, and everybody also as well on the panel. Great to meet you.
I nearly ran out of breath introducing everyone there. I didn't take a deep enough inhale of oxygen, so I barely made it through to the introductions. But great to see everyone. We've got a truly global panel today, which is really interesting as well. Mark, I said backstage I'm going to pick on you first, so I have to live up to my promise. So what are some initial steps that organizations should take to successfully embark on the journey of integrating automation into their talent acquisition process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, and in my role, I've had the luxury to be close to like change management processes and different TA leaders who've kind of went on this journey. And what has always been interesting to me, and obviously, you see this in different departments, is you always try to look at, okay, what are those, repetitive tasks that, recruitment teams are doing over again, which are maybe high impact, but are very time consuming. But it's always, okay, how do you assess that? So I actually got this from a company I work closely with, Nielsen IQ. They hosted like a brainstorm session for recruitment teams, hiring managers, and also for candidates, trying to figure out, okay, what are those bottlenecks and how can we identify, where we should start? And what was interesting is not only they got intel on what's not working, but also they got buy-in from everyone to do something about it. And is really a Kickstarter, and what I've seen been really successful. Also keen to hear Deepak, with such a large organization, how he goes about these type of topics. So Deepak, maybe you can shine some light on that.
No, thanks, Mark. Thank you very much. And thanks, Chris. To me, I think the beginning point on all of this is really about getting the efficiency, the best way to be able to look at it from a standpoint of using technology. And, I keep saying that all across. It's really about, getting the combination right and complementing, both sides of it, And the first starting point of that is really about scale. For us, I was sharing with some of you and Mark, that, the large pool of people that we have, it's a diverse group of employees, 66 countries, 235,000 people. On a consistent basis, we've been hiring and going back onto our client base. And one of the key elements on that is that how do we get the best level of efficiency, the best level of speed, catch back in terms of the scale of the volume of the hiring that we go through with, and therefore, very, very quickly then putting it back onto practice. So clearly, some of those are the beginning start points, if you may, right? And obviously, then once you go back and you can take back a lot more insights from that, building upon the insights that that one gets to understand. And then playing on that, on the data on a very progressive basis. So are some of those basic start points, I would say, and building from there on.
Deepak, could you share some specific examples of where you've introduced automation into the process?
Clearly, Chris, very deeply, one of the strong elements that we've been using is really about resume screening. When we talk about it, the scale and the volume of hiring that we do on a quarter-on-quarter basis is extensive, right? And that happens worldwide. So one of the large points that we've been doing, AI-based is really about resume screening, and that's a strong element which really helps us out matching that onto the skills taxonomy and the repository that we have, and then being able to give us a qualified set of resumes that we can then go in for the next level of interviews. And I'll come back onto the element of where we bring in the element of the hiring team continuing to do. That's one. The second big one that we've been using, Chris, and I would urge is also about, because we work with a lot of regulatory teams, including banks and government establishments and large corporations worldwide, is really about the background verification process. And that's another strong example where we're able to go back onto resumes, and there's a profile that we have of what the requirements are from the client side. And then we get a very clear input back coming across, meeting across the definitions that we've been put across. And some of those definitions are really about client-specific definitions that we've been put across to get a qualified set of resumes that can then be taken forward for the finer set of evaluation. That's the second one. The third really is really about scheduling very, very clearly. With the volume and the scale, getting an efficiency back in terms of actually scheduling large scale of interviews is another third very used case that we actually see pretty much in practice. And the fourth one is really how do we get insights back, which is really about, as we are doing more and more resume screening, matching that onto the skills that we have actually identified for the roles. It gives us a lot of insights that can be handy for us to actually craft out our job descriptions for those roles as we move forward, right? So very clearly, those are some of the top ones that we've definitely been used right now. And we're continuing to build. The best part of it is that, you get insights that, the AI is continuing to learn for itself, and, it's developing. So, we are skilling ourselves on the technology as well as the teams back end then as well.
It's also funny because we conduct a candidate expectations report on an annual basis, and we survey. Last year we did 12,000 candidates. We're looking to do the same this year. And funny enough, the top kind of like topics of automation were interview scheduling, resume checking, online tests, and also like internal application reviews. So it kind of aligns with what you've described as well. Hearing that back is really interesting. Maybe a question as well to the other panelists. Do you also utilize Glassdoor reviews? So something that we see in other companies, for example, they look at Glassdoor and look at, okay, what is like the empathy that candidates have for the recruitment process, and what can we learn from those? Yeah, keen to hear how other people are utilizing this.
No, we're not.
At Miro, we do look at Glassdoor reviews. We don't have the volume of data that you probably have, Mark, or you, Deepak. So it's not as statistically viable as what you probably would get on the thousands of people that go through your funnels. But even with smaller samples, we still look. We also have got technologies that we deploy to continuously measure the experience of candidates at different stages. And that does give us more insights what is working and what's not working. I believe that in this age of automation, we need to be very, very careful not to tip this magic line or balance between who are candidates really interacting with. Do they feel that they are included in that process as a human, or that they are just a number? And I think that we need to really, really pay attention to the experience more than ever before we did.
Absolutely. I can't agree any less on that, about the point that you actually brought in, specifically, while there is a huge element of use of technology, AI, automation, and all of the emerging technologies to give us insight. The way I would really look at it is really about sort of working onto the entire so-called quote unquote admin task, repetitive tasks. That's the element, truly speaking, which is where you've been using technology, right? But the core element in terms of the strategy, the decision making, the culture, the values element of it, putting across the company brand and all of that and being sensitive about it, is something completely, even in the scale and the volume that we work with, which of course is for the large population of our technology lead hirings that we do. But we do also equally leadership hiring, middle management hiring, and those are extremely sensitive, critical positions. But we still use technology, but it's a lot more hands-on, hugging people, looking at the candidate experience on that element and very personalized. I mean, so I absolutely agree with you that it's really about keeping the fine balance between using technology, complementing that, and then having the individual HR teams and in the hiring teams and line managers significantly involved into the process itself.
Lisa, I'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I was just going to jump in. So, Deepak, similar to you, I think, we've used it. I've used it in the past in a couple of different ways, but keeping that human element is so important and using it for those repetitive tasks. So one way I've used, AI in the past in this space is like you flipping the organization to think about implementing a skills-based approach as, to be able to help you to match your candidates to your job requisitions using a skills-based approach. And using that approach it helps you for your volume. So prioritization and helping with sourcing leads and ranking qualified candidates for a particular job vacancy. But it also helps, those AI-enabled tools also help you find related skills that you might never, and inferred skills to use matches that you might never have thought in using in a traditional methods that you have applied in the past. So, I think that helps increase productivity and enhance that user experience and also helps broaden that candidate pipeline. And so, I think, in the past, I've implemented an internal talent marketplace solution. And so that helps the recruiters to get a list of best candidates for a role. But it's still the recruiter's job at the end of the day to then kind of use that data as input and to then match those capabilities specifically to the job needs. And then, that helps elevate again the role of that recruiter and just the influence on the recruiting process, which I think is what I think is super important, as we think about recruiting and talent acquisition moving forward, it's kind of improving that candidate experience, but also elevating that role of the recruiter so they become a business partner. And so I think, that's the way that I've done in the past and think about it. And secondly, I think another way, and I think Deepak mentioned it, is kind of that interview scheduling process and bringing automation into that process. So, that allows for real-time options and for the candidates to be able to use that to schedule interviews, but it also helps send you can help use it to send custom calendar invites out. So the resumes is already attached and it has a custom message that you send to your candidates. And so that all allows you to just create a better experience using automation and AI. And then I think the third area that I would highlight is in the past, I've used AI for recruiting, for marketing. And so that just helps also to drive that career site personalization and job recommendations based on content views. And so it allows AI to push, or using AI so that you as an organization can push the right messages to the right candidates at the right time. And so it just, enhances your employee value proposition and gives recruiters, again, a pathway to passive candidates that they might not have found in the past through traditional marketing techniques.
I absolutely love that point that you brought out is along the element of not just looking at it for external candidate hiring, but really also looking at internal capability, right? And because a large portion of us right now in organizations across are starting to look at how do we drive a scale mobility of our talent, right? I mean, teams have spent time, they understand the culture, they understand the organization, they've, delivered absolutely well. So one of the top things that we're doing is really scale up our internal, hiring process itself, if you may, right? Internal rotation and mobility of talent. And so the engine for that starts from the element that we all do have a talent intelligence platform. So, the career platform, it gives us, resumes, people fill in their aspirations, their, profiles are auto updated from the projects that they actually do. But then the question is that, there is an element to actually screen and match across onto the right profiles and the right candidates. So to your point, it's significant benefit when applied internally to the volume of people that we have as well, right? But at the same point of time, I love the other point that you also made, Leslie, is about the aspect of our own teams, therefore learning from it and then applying it onto the ground to find the best people who are suited for the right roles, right? So it's really about that combination as well. So, I mean, I think today the way that we stand, our own internal teams are going through their own learning, right? In terms of using the technology, using the tool, but at the same point of time, getting those insights and then matching that back across onto the profile. So we've got a significant tick up right now that we've realized on our internal, fulfillment and our internal, rotation process, backed up with a platform, but paired up with, an individual level, deeper conversations.
Arno,
Yeah,
I'd love to hear from you, Arno. You've been quiet there in the background. Arno, you've been sitting there patiently nodding
Oh
away.
yeah. Unlike my ex-wife, I can really listen. I'm grasped by Deepak's. I think it was his first point. It's a scale. So the thing is, I make a different approach when it comes to talent. So it all starts with your definition of talent. And I find it that in general, we tend to look at people for what they have done instead of what they're going to be doing and what kind of values and competences that human being is carrying with him or her or X. So technology is great in scanning and mapping the past and the potential of that individual for the future based on the past, but it doesn't say necessarily anything about the amount of talent that individual has. So I truly believe if you, now obviously I'm not hiring 135,000 people a year, but if you are in a smaller company and you look for that true gems, the true talents, that the human factor is by far more important than any technology platform out there.
No, I agree. I think one of the roles of the technology is to free up that time to be more human and have those conversations. I think the role of a hiring manager or a recruiter is fundamentally changed. And technology is now allowing them, to your point, to focus on the human, become a strategic business partner to the organization. So I agree with you. I think whether you're small or large, that's becoming, I mean, not every company's taking it that way. Some people are cutting heads because of the technology, but I kind of disagree with that. I think now you're just kind of enabling those hiring managers and recruiters to finally create that personalized candidate experience and that human touch that's been missing for some time now.
I think so too, and there's been a big disconnect in general between recruiters and business. So a lot of recruiters are basically harvesting resumes and CVs and the likes of those, and not truly be involved in the business side of things, thus making it very, very difficult for them to make a human impression towards the candidate and towards the business as well. Because it's all about numbers, and I'm more about human beings and actually talking to people in the hiring process. So that takes more time, but the benefits are are good when you look at retention and the output of the candidate.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think can't agree more on that one. Manu, for sure. It's really about deep conversations. It's really about bringing that back, that personalized experience to people, and that has its own deep depth meaning for sure. I think the way to the way we've been looking at it is that when it is scale, when it is volume, and when it is efficiency, when it is driving productivity and some of the larger tasks, how do we free up time, to Chris's point, that our recruiters and hiring teams and all of that can then spend lot more meaningful time with candidates themselves. Also, another element is really also about, one is the interviewing process itself. The second is the feedback going back to candidates, right? That's to us very critical, because we have repeat candidates coming back, and it's a small world in the technology space that we are in, and we have an impression. And earlier, Mark, you touched upon the element of Glassdoor, and a lot of the feedback that our potential candidates go back, and it's really about the experience that they've had. It's not about whether they got selected or not, but it's fundamentally about whether they believe that this is the right organization for them to have party to, whether it is now or at some point of time later. So that experience is very, very deep, and for us to be able to go back with the feedback and explain why we didn't select, if at all we didn't, is very critical. So we keep that core and central to us as well.
Yeah. And we all know the frustration of hearing nothing back. Right? It's the worst thing. Yeah. And that's your first impression and touch point with an organization.
It's okay to say that you're not selected, but you'd at least say that you're not selected, and say it at the right point of time, and go back with at least an answer to say why you've not selected and what could you have done better right now, right? And
Deepak, I had a CHRO recently of a very large company that you all know go through a 4-month. This is for a CHRO, right? 4-month process, and went through multiple stages and they didn't even hear anything back.
Wow.
Can you imagine? And Chris, I spent this is a lot of time and energy and work and literally traveling to these interviews, and she was like, Chris, I couldn't believe I heard nothing back, right? So even at that level, we're still not doing this. Eva, what does this mean for the role of the hiring manager and recruiters? How are you helping them in response to this increased automation? Because we do need to help support, upskill and reskill those leaders and invest in them. We can't just expect them to change overnight, right? As well.
Yeah, yes, Chris. But let me, I'm just going to be a little bit naughty here, because I really want to react to what was the conversation just before you asked me the question. I think that the empathy is going to become a very valuable currency, because the more we use those technologies, the possibility of a particular person to be in a search process is very likely, but how many of those organizations will actually have a real conversation with that person, right? I think there might be a propensity of that to happen less, and that really worries me. So I think let's not forget the empathy. Who are those people behind those numbers? But back to your question on hiring managers and recruiters and the roles that they have and how they are evolving. I'm actually quite optimistic. And I like to think about it that these two groups are going to benefit quite significantly from what's happening if we are careful, if we do it ethically, transparently, and with human heart. So when it comes to human hiring managers, I kind of like to use the term that they are really shifting from managers to collaborative workforce planners. That's how I like to call it. And Miro, as an organization that built its whole core business model on collaboration between humans, we very much utilize our product in the process of the development of a job description. So we very much welcome a situation where the role is being looked at by a number of people, by a number of stakeholders before that kickoff document is finalized. And this is something that automated technology cannot fully do for you, because it does require a lot of judgment. But what the technology can do, it can synthesize a lot of these different inputs so that the hiring manager and recruiter have a much faster ability to get to the conclusion, what are the critical components of that role. We use Miro boards a lot of time in that process, and because they are so heavily now AI enabled, we have a concept called AI sidekicks. So basically, as you are doing things on the board, AI will recommend you things to do more or to do less. So obviously, this is how technology is helping us get to the right level of judgment. But I really believe that hiring managers, and this is what I encourage my recruiters to do, and this is what I talk to the leaders at Miro about, is that before you start a new search, really ask yourself what level of job augmentation should happen within that role. And it's not about job displacement. I think everybody is constantly talking about job displacement. It's not the case, but I think we should really be thinking in those capabilities and skills and performing responsibilities that you have there, how much of it is really still going to happen the way it happened a year ago? Should you be thinking about redesigning it so that within the role, you are already applying a higher value adding judgment role? So this is, I also perceive that as a great opportunity for hiring managers to think more creatively about the future of the workforce that they bring. Another point I wanted to make, and we have become very, very purposeful about it at Miro, is that you can screen the competencies to the point that Arno made, right? Like you can screen the past, you can evaluate psychometrically lots of things, but ultimately there are certain capabilities that are becoming more critical than ever in humans, especially when it comes to organizations or industries that rely heavily on human curiosity and innovation. And we have actually codified in our company a series of capabilities that are very, very innately human. And we have made a decision that these capabilities will never be evaluated with the use of technology. So we train managers on how they should evaluate those capabilities. So we are talking about things like resilience, cognitive agility, curiosity, because we believe that that true dialogue is going to be so important to the decision whether this person will succeed in our organization, because we want them to succeed, right? And finally, on the changing role of recruiters, again, I'm very optimistic because I think what recruiters can really truly become is, I would call them talent advisors / data equipped anticipators. Because if you use advanced talent analytics technologies, you can equip your recruiters, and we are very early on the journey, but we're doing it. You can equip recruiters with data, not just about the health of their pipelines, funnels, etc. You equip them with the information about the health of the organization so that they can predict where exactly, in which part of the business that they are servicing and supporting, things may start to pop up that gives them that opportunity to step in and advise the leaders and the managers, like, I see hotspots that are coming your way in the attrition. You will probably have a whole funnel collapse. Maybe we can start working on it and anticipate what may happen. I think this completely elevates the discussion between a recruiter and the business, and it really does give recruiters a completely new wave of strategic contribution. And I think that's very exciting. But I don't know how you all feel about it. I'm an optimist.
Eva, I will jump in here. I just think, there's a point that you made that I think is super aligned to my thinking. It's having data and that ability to use data to help you make informed decisions. I think that's kind of what it's all about, is if you don't have that capabilities, you can't make informed decisions. So being able to use that data to tell the story so that you can make informed decisions as a recruiter, as a hiring manager. And so I think, that point resonates with me as well, and how I've looked at it in the past.
I love the point, Eva, you mentioned around not screening for those power skills. I don't want to use the word soft skills because I feel like those skills are becoming more important now than ever as we introduce more AI and more automation. It's that curiosity. It's that we're leading with empathy. It's the resilience. How do you screen for that with AI? I completely agree with you. How does that show up on a CV? You can look at it in some ways, but equipping your managers with the right questions and tools to have that in conversations, I love that. And I want to make sure everyone listening takes that down as a very important thing. Maybe we'll get there in the future, but I still feel like that now more than ever, those are the skills that are becoming more and more important. We've kind of gone full 360 now with AI being able to automate a lot of the technical capability that we used to screen for and look for. Now those human power skills, I like to say, those are the areas that I feel like we need to make sure we pay attention to and equip our leaders and managers to have those conversations. So I just wanted to double click on that. I love that point.
Well,
that you made.
I have seen an interesting demo in Barcelona about a year ago. And I have a feeling that it might have been Siemens digital employee digitization of workforce director. I think they do some absolutely awesome, cool things in that space. And they actually are developing avatars that can train managers on showing up with more empathy and curiosity. So I think it's not impossible, but I think a very significant oversight of humans, what is then done with that information or what the information used for is going to be very critical. But I wouldn't be surprised if these technologies 2-3 years from now will become available.
Mm-hmm. A few people in the chat have asked a couple of similar questions. One of them being, where do I even start? Because we covered quite a few things along the way. And the other one,
Ask AI.
yeah. Ask the AI, where should I start? Do you know what? There's probably a lot of people, including me, that have done that many times for many different things as well. And the other is around like buy-in, like how to get the right buy-in to start to create some of this automation. Like, what is the business case? Any advice for those people with those questions?
Well, the business case, it can save time, yeah, and elevate your hiring process and elevate the level of people that you hire. So, I mean, that the business case is obviously that's a very general answer, because it's very difficult to give a business case answer for several organizations, but the case is there. And not per se for Omnicom, I've been playing around with this idea of even using AI to solve really problems that you see in society. Yeah, I mean, if you use AI properly within your workforce, people have the ability to work less. If your output is the same or even higher, you can use the hours that people work less to put them to work at places where we need real people, like in education, in hospitals, in taking care of our elderly. And by doing so, you basically take away that problem, raise the awareness with your current workforce, and make them more, I think, mindful and giving back to society, which raises their joy in life. Well, that's a business case, yeah.
Yeah, and Arno, if I can jump in here, I think, one of the things is really looking at your end-to-end journey and understanding where do you have challenges and opportunities, and then taking those challenges and opportunities and building your business case around that to say, okay, I have an opportunity here to automate or to bring in AI, and that return on investment will be X. And so therefore you build your business case, but starting with the business needs. What are those opportunities where you can have an impact and you can bring in AI or automation to make a difference? And then what is the savings around that? And how do you then invest that in other areas? And I think, like the time spent for a recruiter, like you said, to schedule interviews, there's a cost to that. And you can quickly and easily say, okay, my return on investment there is X, and I can invest it somewhere else. And then offsetting that to the investment needed and building that business case. So there's an initial investment that's needed that's going to be there at the beginning, but then over time you'll see the investment and your return on investment grow. And so building that business case and then presenting that, but start small. I think you don't have to do everything at once. What are those 2 or 3 things that you can do, and what's the return on investment there?
Yeah, your client base is a big challenge, yeah, because if you look at the creative industry, for instance, people are being paid by the hour to come up with a creative idea. So AI is saving them a lot of time, because you can use it as a sparring partner to come up with creative ideas, and you need to be paid for the idea and not for the amount of time that you put in the idea. But the business cycle is not ready for that. So if I come up with a brilliant idea within an hour, I basically need to lie that I worked on it for 100 hours, otherwise I don't get paid. And that in its own is a ridiculous thing, obviously. But when you look at going back to your story, look at the business case. That's something that you need to look at as well.
Yeah, the KPIs need to change, and because we need to start measuring the output, not the hours. And I had the same thing in sales before I started this company. We had specific KPIs, of this many hours on the phone, this many phone calls, and I actually created my own. Back then was more like an AI assistant. It wasn't really an agent because we didn't have the technology back then, and it automated my LinkedIn workflow and my sales. So it was automatically scheduling me calls. I didn't tell anyone in my team. I just did this as a sales executive. And all of a sudden I was doing, 4x the amount of deals as everyone else. But my KPIs, I was still being brought into meetings by my sales director saying, you're not performing. But I'm like, well, I'm doing 4 times the amount of sales. Oh yeah, but these numbers don't match to your point. You're not putting this many hours in, which we require. And it is a perfect example to your point. I was like, what are we measuring here? Are we measuring the output of me delivering sales, or are we measuring how many hours that I'm on the phone doing that? So internally, the way we're currently rewarding people and the current systems that are set up, that also needs to change, Arno. I agree that that's something that you need to look at the entire end-to-end experience to make sure we look at that too. Otherwise, you're going to be incentivizing the wrong behaviors as well. So I agree. Like I have certain team members now where we've automated a lot of their roles in sales and marketing. And I could say, okay, let's just add more work onto their load. No, don't do that. So now they're spending time more collaborating with the team, doing more time personally themselves with their family and friends, like you said, Arno, and being more, they actually can go to the gym now because they have time to be able to do that. So it's going to be a big cultural transformation and change.
And also not, Chris, because basically we are repeating ourselves. Yeah, I mean, after the industrialization, which is a very difficult word for me, people could work 40 hours, 35 hours a week. And prior to that, we needed to work 70 hours to get the same product. So this is a repeating thing. I mean, I really love technology, but don't make technology the center of everything. It's just another way to optimize your business. Yeah, and we've been doing that as human beings for ages. When we invented the wheel, that saved us a lot of time and effort. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's just a new evolution of that, right? The same thing with the internet.
Yeah.
As well. I'm being told we're running out of time. I didn't even realize that the conversation went so fast. We didn't even scratch the surface of the topic, but thanks so much, everyone. Before I let you go, what would be kind of one parting takeaway that you've or piece of advice that you'd give to the audience, and then we'll say goodbye. Eva, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think human prevails. That would be number one. And number two, really think about the value. When we are on this train of AI and technology, what is the value? Because it's way more than productivity gains. And we need to really ask ourselves that question over and over again. So these two. Sorry, not one. You asked for one. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Two is good. Three is good. That's fine. Mark?
Yeah, I think coming back to Eva's points, is mapping out the candidate journey and make it a collaboration across the business, which can help you get buy-in from everyone and get on the vehicle of change.
Yeah, otherwise it's going to leave you behind. Liesl?
I think start small. You don't have to do everything at once. And then secondly, to everyone's point, I think don't forget about the human element. Be empathetic.
Love that. Arno?
Well, Forever did too, so I do 0 because I fully agree with her.
Yeah. Last but not least, Deepak.
No, I absolutely agree with everything that we've just spoken about. For me, it's a hybrid approach. Start small. Use AI, use it for your best benefit, but be absolutely responsible about it. Responsible AI, ethical AI, and keeping the human at the center of it is at the core. That's really it. So it's a combination. So I wouldn't, go either sides. It isn't really about not, using it, but absolutely using it responsibly and keeping the human at the core.
I love that. Well, look, thank you so much, everyone. What an amazing panel discussion. Big thank you to all of our panelists for sharing your experience, and to all of you that have joined us all over the world. We appreciate your support. Special thank you to our friends at Quantify for helping us bring this panel together. If you're watching the video, directly below that, you can click the green button and you can download their latest ebook, which helps organizations uncover the best ways to get started with AI and automation. So make sure you click that button. And if you enjoyed today's discussion, we'll be back on the 3rd of April, where we're going to be talking about how to build a recognition program that truly reaches the deskless worker. That's one that's been requested by many of you. So we're going to be jumping into that. And there'll be a link in the chat for that. Apart from that, wherever you are in the world, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.